Hello and welcome. We are Catherine Butler, Group 1, and over the next 10 minutes we will explain how Dr. Matt Finn does research and what this means for producing contemporary geographical knowledge. We will draw upon an interview we conducted with Dr. Finn, an example of his research, and other readings on geographical research and knowledge. The presentation will start with information about Dr. Finn and his chosen field of research. Next, we will introduce a specific example of his research and discuss how he conducted and produced this geographical knowledge. Following this, we will explain the role of funding in Dr. Finn's research. Afterwards, we will assess the implications of his research for producing contemporary geographical knowledge. Finally, we will bring together the discussion in a summative conclusion. I will now hand over to Barnaby to run through some information on Dr. Finn and his research.
Thank you, Fred. Dr. Matt Finn is a human geographer whose primary research focuses on education and childhood geographies. His current interests include how education varies within and between countries and the implications for upbringing. However, initially he studied physics before working in a school, which prompted him to switch to geography. And having visited India and Kazakhstan, he saw firsthand how much education varies, which sparked an interest in this area. After graduating from Durham, he decided to begin a master's degree and subsequent PhD in geography. His education experiences have shaped his knowledge and research methods, enabling him to study childhood geographies acutely. He now lectures in human geography at the University of Exeter and serves as Programme Director for BA Geography. I'll now hand it over to Mimi, who will discuss the specific example of Dr. Finn's research in relation to data.
Thank you very much, Barnaby. Atmosphere of Progress in Database Schools was published in 2016 and explores the role of data in quantifying felt educational achievement. It examines links between students' empirical progress and their numerical progress. Having read the article, we asked Dr. Finn about data collection as we wondered what was the impact of using subjective data and how this differs from objective data. Dr. Finn pointed out that many human geographers would argue that seemingly subjective data is merely a subject of objective data. He notes that instead of conversations with students, he could have used surveys which produce numerical data often associated with objectivity. Historically, as Johnson and Sidaway point out, geographers were obsessed with making their subject significantly rigorous. Attempting to attribute laws and equations to objective data, like those of physics or chemistry. However, Dr. Finn has identified that objective data applies when studying human geography and ethnography. Given the noticeable lack of traditionally objective data, this notion is critical to understanding how he does research in this field. This mandates research seeks alternative methods such as interviews and conversations, which Dr. Finn does regularly when conducting research. I will now let Murray take us through research types and methods.
Thanks. Following on, Dr. Finn spoke about surveys, which we assume to be more objective, given that they frequently produce numerical data. However, how a question is asked significantly affects the answers the question will receive, even with surveys. Therefore, he had to be wary of this fact when researching, so he opted to speak to participants instead of posing surveys. Given the scarce prior research in the area, he decided to conduct the research and then draw a conclusion from the data, known as exploratory research. The alternative is hypothesizing before, and then collecting data to prove or disprove a theory. These two differing research types often impact the data gathering. Qualitative data is more suited to exploratory research, and quantitative data is more appropriate for confirmatory research. Martin and Flowerdew assert that decision-making in research is paramount to determining the type of geographical knowledge produced. There are decisions on what to research, the methods employed, and data analysis and presentation. Therefore, how the research is done will impact the type and calibre of the contemporary geographical knowledge produced. Over to Fred to give us an idea of how funding impacts research.
Thank you, Barnaby. Unfortunately, Inez is unable to present due to illness. I will therefore speak on her behalf. Funding has a significant impact on how research is done. During the interview, Dr. Finn spoke about how, within his education and scholarship job family, he primarily seeks internal funding from the Exeter Education Incubator. He is preparing for a bid for funding to study a farm recently acquired by the National Trust's Killerton property for educational purposes. This is a contemporary example of Dr. Finn's research as he hopes to analyse the impact of the farm on local learning. However, his current role is not primarily focused on research. His position does not have a research production expectation. Dr. Finn explained that the current funding system for academics can hinder research and knowledge production for 3 reasons. Historically, funding has been awarded to specific demographics despite anonymity, indicating an unconscious bias. Also, funding does not always cover the total research cost. Then, finally, many academics dedicate a lot of time to bidding for funding, and when they are unsuccessful, this time has been wasted and could have been spent alternatively. Therefore, it is clear that funding can impede how research is done, as methods and expectations may need to be drawn back. I now hand over to myself to explain the implications of all of this. Thank you very much, Inez. So, now that we have established a lot about Dr. Matt Finn and how he does research, we must bring together all of this to assess the implications for contemporary knowledge production. We asked him about the current relevance of his paper, which was published 8 years ago, and he admitted that more contemporary articles have probably been published since its publication. He spoke about things he does to remain at the vanguard of geographical knowledge production, such as attending conferences, reading journals, and collaborating with peers. Jazeel argues that geographical journals and publications are too Western. Euro-American geographers describe non-Western areas with a sense of foreignness. This is seen by many as othering, creating a feeling among some that journals and publications may not be the best way to learn about contemporary geography. Therefore, to take Jazeel's assertion, remaining at the vanguard of contemporary geographical knowledge may not require reading journals and publications. We bring nuance to this idea, as we believe that especially in the case of Dr. Finn, contemporary knowledge production does not always happen in publication. We assert that Dr. Finn is at the vanguard of knowledge production through his pedagogic research and teaching, which he does daily. Teaching the next generation of geographers is crucial to knowledge production and endurance. So, in summary, geographers can produce contemporary geographical knowledge in different ways. In summary, Barnaby introduced Dr. Finn and his research area, the geographies of education and childhood. Then, Mimi explained the role of different data types in his work, referring to an example from his previous research. After this, Barnaby discussed research methods and types, and the crucial notion that different pieces of knowledge are produced through various research methods. Then, we discussed funding and the potential conflicts between the funding system and research outcomes. I finished by arguing the implications for Dr. Finn's unique research and his role as an academic in producing contemporary geographical knowledge. We hope you have found our presentation insightful. Thank you very much for listening.